Colleagues, I think we'll start. We're running a few minutes behind because of votes, but we should be able to still have a productive meeting. Minister Bryson, welcome once again to our committee. And this time you were here to discuss Supplementary Estimates B. And without any further ado, to try and make up for some lost time, perhaps we can start with your opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm delighted to be back with the committee, and I'm joined today by Joyce Murray, who's just joining us, our Parliamentary Secretary, Yaprek Baltazulu, the Secretary of the Treasury Board, Brian Pagan, Assistant Secretary of Expenditure Management Sector, and Renee Lafontaine, Chief Financial Officer. Dans le budget supplémentaire
With the supplementary estimates, the government is seeking Parliament's approval of funding to address matters of importance to Canadians.
For the crisis in Iraq and Syria, First Nations education, recovery efforts in Fort McMurray, and funds for youth employment. We're seeking additional parliamentary approval of $3.9 billion and additional spending for 68 organizations. And I'd like to draw your attention to some of the major voted items. They include $375.5 million in funding to address the crises in Iraq and Syria by providing funding for the Canadian Forces to train, advise and assist Iraqi security forces and to address the humanitarian crisis in the region. $350.6 million in funding to advance early work and land acquisition in Michigan for the Gordie Howe International Bridge between Windsor and Detroit. $249.3 million in funding for the Post-Secondary Institution Strategic Investment Fund, or SIF, to enhance and modernize and improve the environmental sustainability of research facilities across Canada. $245.8 million in funding for additional investments in First Nations elementary and secondary education, as in Budget 2016.
In addition, these supplementary estimates include an increase of $375 million in planned statutory expenditures. This increase reflects revised forecasts for such items as interest payments, territorial financing, and payments to provinces related to softwood lumber export charges.
Set out in Budget 2016. Mr. Chair, these are some of the highlights of the supplementary estimates. As you know, supplementary estimates ensure that departments and agencies can receive the necessary funding to move planned government initiatives forward and meet the needs of Canadians. They include budget priorities and information on spending requirements that couldn't be included in the main estimates because, in many cases, because of when the main estimates were tabled. But this, as in previous discussions we've had, could change for the better with the package of reforms we've discussed when I was here earlier this month. I'm referring specifically to the proposal to move the tabling of the main estimates from March 1st to on or before May 1st on a provisional basis for the next two budget and estimates cycles. Now, this change would ensure that main estimates include, or help ensure that main estimates include budget items. As it stands now, as you're aware, the main estimates can only reflect decisions as of January, long before the budget actually comes out. So the main estimates, therefore, as it is now, do not reflect the government's most recent plans and priorities as outlined in the budget. This timing limits your ability to provide proper oversight of a fundamentally important financial document. Reforming the estimates process would give parliamentarians better tools to hold the government to account and future governments to account. And you'd be able to study documents that would be substantially more meaningful than the ones you have today. By tabling main estimates later, we would also eliminate the need for spring supplementary estimates, and this would create the added benefit of enabling parliamentarians to focus their attention on one estimates document in the supply period ending June 23rd, a more meaningful document. It would also mean that the first round of supplementary estimates would be tabled in the autumn during the supply period ending December 10th. I would add that this proposal would not reduce the number of supply days, and I want to be clear on that point. Adjusting the tabling date for main estimates would have no impact on the number of allotted opposition days or other aspects of the supply cycle, including planned supplementary estimates for the supply periods ending December 20th and March 26th. Committees would be able to examine estimates documents and call on officials and ministers throughout the supply cycle. And after the two budget and estimate cycles, the House would examine the provisional reform and determine a permanent date. And the goal would be to have an earlier date to tighten the timelines between the budget and the main estimates. I've suggested March 31st in the past, but that's ultimately up to Parliament to determine. In closing, allow me to reiterate our strong commitment to working with all parliamentarians to strengthen the estimates process. I think we can all agree on the need for reform. And I view this, as I've said earlier, as an evergreening process that making iterative steps, significant steps, but iterative steps, identifying what works, having an opportunity to work with these changes, and then to consider other steps as we move forward. There's a clear need for making the planning, the spending, and the tracking of tax dollars more timely and transparent. And I'm confident that the package of reforms our government's proposing will help achieve those objectives. Look forward to your feedback, your recommendations as we move forward together, and my officials and I would be more than happy to take your questions.
Thank you very much, Minister. We'll start off the round of questioning with Madame Ratanzi for 7 minutes.
Thank you, Minister, and thank to the staff for being here. And if I understand your presentation clearly, the sub-Bs, I'm reading it from the introduction, that the purpose is to provide us, the MPs, the spending requirements which were either not sufficiently developed in time for inclusion in the main estimates or have subsequently been refined. And at the moment, you're talking about a 4.3% increase, about $3.9 billion. So my question is, the proposal that you have given in realigning the mains and the budget, how would this reduce the spread? How would it reduce the number of supplementary estimates that we get? And before you answer the question, I was asked by my colleague to thank Mr. Pagan for his Movember mustache and to ask you why you haven't got one. So that's now the serious question you can answer.
I'll start with the last question. It would take me far longer than November to achieve what Mr. Pagan has achieved in February. I'd need about the next 12 years to grow that much. So on the other question, there's been a lot of progress in terms of the work between Finance and Treasury Board and departments. In fact, last year, I believe 70% of budget initiatives were almost 70% were delivered in subs A at the time. Now, that's up from about, I think, 6% the year previous. What our objective is, in terms of changing the sequence of budget and estimates such that the main estimates would be tabled after the budget, would be that we would work to include the lion's share of budget initiatives in the main estimates, which would make the main estimates a more pertinent and more meaningful document. Well, as it stands now, with main estimates coming out with a deadline of March 1st currently, what happens is with main estimates is that you don't have, first of all, you don't have any of the budget initiatives, but all the efforts by parliamentarians in studying, well, March 31st rather, the deadline of March 31st, all the efforts, and there's significant efforts parliamentarians put into studying the main estimates, all that is rendered basically useless and irrelevant once the budget comes out. And we view the work of Parliament as being important, and we want parliamentarians to have the opportunity to hold the government to account on meaningful documents. And this is part of, estimates timing is one of the 4 areas of reform we're proposing in terms of the budget estimates process. The other is a better reconciliation of cash and accrual accounting methods in terms of the estimates and the budget. Program-based expenditure approval, again, providing more detail to Parliament and as such more power ultimately to Parliament on specific expenditures. And finally, departmental plans that are more informative and also actually reflect what a department or a program does in terms of what are the plans and ultimately measures the results, so that parliamentarians and Canadians can hold governments, any government, to account.
So my supplementary question, I have two, but I don't think I'll have time for it. I like the fact that Department of Industry for the funding for post-secondary strategic research facilities across Canada is getting additional money, because we've had students say, what about us? You know, you're giving money for researchers at the PhD level, but we're not getting it. But you can answer the question later. But as a member of the Global Organization of Parliamentarians Against Corruption, this process that you are asking us to do is a more transparent process because it enables accountability. And I think the third world countries want to adopt that type of methodology. So what prevents us? What is the hump that we have to go through to get the collective understanding that this is good for us?
Well, I think, you know, I trust this is something I believe is, I think we all agree in terms of the need for some change. I think there's a broad consensus that the system as it exists now is not transparent, is unnecessarily complicated, and as such isn't working that well. But this is not avant-garde stuff. The fact is, countries like Australia, provinces like Ontario and Quebec, other jurisdictions have done this. They have taken this sort of approach, and so what we're doing in some ways is catching up to the logical budget and estimates alignment processes, in terms of processes that other jurisdictions have already done. So while I think I agree we have a responsibility to demonstrate, to show an example in terms of governance, but right now we're actually not, I think, setting a great example. I think this is something that's important, and we have other jurisdictions that are doing a better job of it, and I would hope to emulate their success, but at some point in the future for us to keep evergreening this and strengthening it for a model for the world.
Less than a minute.
Oh, go quick.
How do you see the importance, perhaps, Minister, of the interim financial state or the interim supply that will be occurring given the changes in the dates and opportunities parliamentarians might have to question and ask questions about the budgetary process in a prospective way?
I view the opportunities for parliamentarians to demand questions in interim supply. That's very important, and we would want to maintain an opportunity for parliamentarians to do that. But beyond that, Mr. Whalen, it's important that there will be no loss to supply days as a result of these changes. And the idea here is to improve the scrutiny of government spending, not the opposite.
Mr. Macaulay, 7 minutes, please.
Great. We'll actually get to the scrutiny instead of alignment. Welcome, and I appreciate your not taking the opportunity to grow a mustache.
So does
Mr. Pagan, congratulations on your epic stash.
So does my partner.
Minister, if we could just step back, I want to go back to what we discussed about the sub-pays. There was $1.7 billion. We specifically discussed there was money for safe water for First Nations reserves, and I asked specifically how we're prioritizing that. Can you update us on that money? How much has been spent? What's been done?
Do you have that, Brian? I don't have it. I don't have personally the details on that, but I can find in consultation with my colleague, Minister Bennett. Brian may have that. We have the
If you haven't
materials
got it
here for
immediately, you can
sub-say, but
respond later.
We can certainly.
Perfect. I just want to get to a couple of the items in the SUPs, and I realize time is short. Department of Agriculture and Agri-Food, it's under 2-23. There's 1.8, well, almost 1.9 million for grants to foreign recipients for participation in international organizations supporting agriculture. And I looked at this, I have to ask, why are we spending 1.9 million on foreigners to attend foreign conferences?
Yeah. Food security, Mr. McCauley, this is a global issue, and Canada, as part of the global community, has a responsibility
The government sees it as our responsibility to send foreigners to foreign conferences?
Well, we also have one of the biggest industries within Canada that has the greatest global growth potential is our agri-food industries. So it's not only part of our responsibility collectively as part of the global community, but there are real opportunities for Canadian agri-food industries to participate in the development of agriculture in the developing world, and these are, so there are opportunities, and now I would ultimately the Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Foods, Minister McCauley, is better positioned to do, but I participate in international fora from time to time, and I can tell you that Canada's role in international food security is a respected one, and I think is an important leadership one, because if you don't have food security in the developing world, what you end up with is a greater contribution to the types of global crises we see that emanate in those countries.
We send our people to participate and rather.
Well, that happens as well, but part of institution building is ensuring people in those countries have the skills they need to lead.
Okay. Maybe as a follow-up, Mr. Pagan, with the other ones, you can send us a list of what countries we're providing that money to?
Sure. Glad to. Certainly.
Just real quickly, Department of Finance actually $4 million for Harbourfront Centre in Toronto. Do you know what that would be for? Is it just a straight operating grant?
Yeah.
And again, if you don't have it, rather than spend time.
I do. Yeah? Sure. Thanks for the question. This is a transfer. The Harbourfront Centre, previous to this year, had been administered through a grant contribution by the Department of Finance, and decision was taken to transfer responsibility for that program to Heritage Canada. And this is in support of ongoing operations at the Harbourfront. They, as I understand, entertain some 17,000 clients, visitors a year. And this is in support of programming for that.
Yeah, and in
Does it support stuff like the PEN International and events like that, or this is just purely the operating?
This is in support of operations of the center.
Okay.
And the long-standing relationship between finance and the Harbourfront Centre is one that I think has existed for some time.
Much time, sir?
That program has moved around in terms of the administration of it. I understand that it became the responsibility of the Department of Finance in something like 2006, 2007, and it was transferred to Heritage this year.
Under the previous government, it was moved to finance.
Those guys.
Well, they're trying to put a little culture in the Department of Finance.
Yeah. Three quick ones, and we're down to 3 minutes. One is 10.8 million for funding to enhance Privy Council offices' capacity to support the Prime Minister and Cabinet Ministers delivering government's agenda, strengthen your infrastructure. Can you very quickly give us a bit of insight on that, or again, if you haven't got the material,
I can speak.
give me one. I've got 2 other questions if you keep it to.
We are implementing as a government a results and delivery model, results-based government, which will we believe will lead to
deliverology.
We believe will lead to a more purposeful and effective government. And in Privy Council, the PCO, there has been a strengthening of resources around that, a results and delivery unit. Treasury Board itself has implemented, it continues to work with departments to implement a results agenda. The objective here, just with governments are typically really good at developing policies, and they focus 90% of their efforts on the policies.
Sorry, Minister, we're going to
and then about 10% on execution. We're focusing on execution, and these investments will achieve
Minister,
certainly.
We're
Thank you.
The chap, just quickly, the gentleman from England, the consultant that you hired on delivering the government promises, is that included in this money, or?
Michael Barber. Yeah, I know. Yeah, it would be. I believe it would be part of that, Sir Michael Barber. Yes.
Part of the funding, Mr. McCauley, is for the results and delivery unit. There's a new.
Can you provide us with how much that is later for that consultant specifically?
That information is available. Yes, certainly.
Great. Just in 30 seconds. Okay. UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. You're looking for an extra 436,000. Was that covered for Marrakesh, or was that added fees for Paris? It's under Foreign Affairs.
I'm sorry, I missed the question. Is it?
It was on the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change.
Right.
Estimates was 400,000 to date, looking for an extra 436 for a total of 848,000. Was that covering off costs from Paris, or is this for Marrakesh?
Marrakesh? Sorry, I missed that.
That's the climate.
The climate summit currently. We will get the details, specific details on that.
If you could, just since we're out of time, I would appreciate if you could supply those details.
Thank you.
To our clerk.
Certainly.
Mr. Weir,
Thank you very
7
much.
minutes, please.
I've got that.
Shared Services is seeking additional funding through the supplementary estimates. Yesterday, our committee heard from Wayne Smith, who resigned as the chief statistician to protest the fact that Shared Services was impinging on Statistics Canada's independence. Notwithstanding some good words in the economic update about independence for Statistics Canada, Mr. Smith believes that the government has not done anything to remove the effective veto that Shared Services has over Statistics Canada's work. So I'm wondering if you could tell us what communication Mr. Smith had with you and your secretariat before he resigned, and also what you're doing in funding Shared Services to try to resolve this problem and ensure an independent national statistics agency.
We absolutely support that the principle that Stats Canada needs to operate independently in terms of its objectives of providing high quality data and information to Canadians. We, in fact, restored the long-form census, and that was a significant step forward in that objective. The broader question of Shared Services Canada and to support the transformation, we are currently conducting a review of Shared Services Canada, along with the Minister of Public Services and Procurement Canada. We've engaged Gartner Canada to assess and make recommendations to us.
No, I'm familiar with the review of Shared Services that's going on. I guess I'm wondering, did Mr. Smith talk to you or others at Treasury Board about these problems before he resigned?
I've not spoken with them, but yeah, Brett?
Not before he was resigning. That was not a discussion that anybody will have with Treasury Board Secretariat. Prior to that, Mr. Smith had identified in written form, as well as in some of the meetings that I had with him, about his concerns. As a result, I stressed with Shared Services Canada that support, especially when the census was being done, that they needed the right support. And I believe the Shared Services Canada had put a full team around the census and the census support. And right now, the Stats Canada operations. Mr. Smith, after the census was finalized, he did report that he was actually adequately supported by Shared Services Canada for the census activities. But we wouldn't be privy to him not being in his job or his independence.
Shared Services Canada is part of Public Services and
understood. Another item in the supplementary estimates is the Correctional Service seeking an additional $30.6 million to cover an increase in the offender population. Your government could easily reduce that population and these costs by decriminalizing marijuana. Why haven't you done so?
Well, as you are aware, the Justice Minister is under the leadership of the Justice Minister. Former Justice Minister Anne McClellan is leading a rigorous study of public policy around that, working with Bill Blair on that. So we are working as a government to research the best possible way forward, what has worked in other jurisdictions well in terms of legalization and regulation of marijuana. We want to identify the best possible practices. Other jurisdictions which have gone before us have taken steps from which we can learn. And that's the advantage in terms of studying rigorously what other jurisdictions have done.
We can rigorous study about how best to legalize marijuana. Right. I'm asking in the meantime, why not decriminalize it so that you're not coming and asking parliamentarians to approve supplementary estimates to keep more people in jail?
I think I always admire your ability, Mr. Weir, to conflate two different issues into one question. I used to be pretty good at that too, but I would argue that we have the need to, in terms of Corrections Canada and right now, is one I wouldn't conflate with a broader public policy in terms of legalization and regulation. I think the two are related very tangentially, but in terms of the needs that exist right now in terms of Corrections Canada, we believe they're real ones.
If the government wasn't putting people in prison for marijuana, then the offender population wouldn't be as large. So I think there's a very clear connection. But I do want to move on to another issue. The supplementary estimates include $46.7 million to try to fix the Phoenix pay system. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if you could tell us how much of that money is going to be paid to IBM.
I don't have the information on that, but we can provide more.
We will provide you more information, but the most of it is that Public Services and Procurement Canada have established satellite offices, and we hired a lot of people for those. So the majority of the money is there. We will get you how much goes to IBM as part of their contract.
Okay. Sure. No, I look forward to that.
But on that issue. Mm-hmm. These investments, a lot of it is going towards putting the people in place and these offices to do the work, to take the calls. One of the things when you're implementing enterprise-wide IT solutions, it's really important to ensure that you have the people in place. And there was an issue in terms of the previous government, the approach in terms of trying to
for sure, and I don't know that we have time to go through all that history. But in terms of,
but we're taking. I tell you, just on the Phoenix pay system, we as a government are absolutely focused on fixing this. This is it is totally unacceptable that public servants are not being paid in many cases on time or accurately, and we're fixing it as a government. This is something that to which we are totally committed, and we take that responsibility.
Well, I agree it's unacceptable,
and that's why we're investing.
And one of the
Mr. Weir, unfortunately, we're out of time. Monsieur Rioux, 7 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
7 minutes, please. Mr. Rioux. Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's always a pleasure to see you, Minister, here with us. Well, there seem to be a number of requests coming in from a legal angle. Let me ask a couple of questions, beginning with the RCMP. It seems to be asking for supplementary estimates, $57 million, to settle legal suits or agreements out of court. And I wanted to check to see that this was actually the case based on another source, Radio-Canada, French CBC, mentioned a fund of $100 million already in existence for victims of discrimination and sexual harassment. Is this the same fund or is it a different fund? Do you have any more information on the RCMP's request in this regard?
The RCMP's reached lawsuits with the plaintiffs in 2 class action lawsuits filed on behalf of regular members, current and former, and civilian members and public service employees. At that time, $100 million had been earmarked in the fiscal framework for the settlement of these claims. The $57 million in these supplementary estimates are to cover the cash flows expected to be made in this fiscal year.
Merci. On va aller du côté de l'Alberta.
Thank you. Let's move over to Alberta with the Fort McMurray wildfires. It's very reassuring now, because we were all so deeply affected by the impact of the fires on that region. We see $104.5 million request with funds that seem to be to match the donations that Canadians have so generously given to help the people of that area. I would like to know if this is $104 million in total that's going to be turned over to the families that have been affected, and are there any other funds coming in from other places to provide more financial assistance in Fort McMurray in Alberta? Please tell us. I do appreciate this question. The people of Fort McMurray can count on the ongoing support of our government. In the current supplementary estimates, an amount of $104 million to the Red Cross, which is matching the Canadians' people's generous gifts. The Red Cross offers a great number of programs to people in the area to help them overcome their losses, reintegrate the workforce, or return to studies and training. A number of examples have been provided by the Red Cross: clothing, food, lodging, equipment, medical aid, baby articles, and things for children, help for public transportation, as well as support to the people in general. Other support has continued. Our support is ongoing, and we will continue to provide our assistance to them in Fort McMurray. It's really a priority for the government. We were very proud of citizens' assistance from across the country. Am I to understand that the $104 million, if you've got a breakdown, because I seem to have seen people nodding when I said that the government had provided more than the $104 million we see here, which, as you say, is to match up with what Canadians offered. So what's the extra amount that Canada has offered, just for the public to let us all know? Do you have the amount? Well, it's too soon to provide you with exact figures. The programming available from Public Safety Canada is called Disaster Financial Assistance Program, and via that program, provinces first pay the bill, and then the federal government reimburses the province for the costs incurred, those that are eligible. Now, there are amounts that we see in the media or elsewhere, speaking of billions of dollars. So is that what we're speaking of? The $104 million is, of course, a very large amount, and really, as you say, matches what Canadians have already given, but we're speaking of a good deal more for Alberta, so we'll have the exact figures later on. Is that what you're telling me? Yes, it's a little too early to have a final accounting, but it's hundreds of millions of dollars, basically. Very well. Hundreds of millions, it's good to know and to be aware. Let me now address the issue of the Treasury Board Secretariat. For legal or paralegal related requests, we see $8.9 million here being requested. For out-of-court settlements, is this customary? Asking for a supplementary estimate, or is this something that had already been planned in the main estimates? Is this a recurring appropriation, and what's the real thought behind this out-of-court settlement approach?
Much of this is from the white class action settlement, which was in terms of RCMP personnel, and the original settlement of $73 million to settle all claims wasn't sufficient, as there were additional claims subsequently, and appeals continue to come forward. So included, so there's 80, as you've cited, 8.9 million for the payout of 33 new claims and appeals.
OK. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. Mr. McColman, welcome to our committee. You have 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Thank you, Minister, for being here to deal with the supplementary estimates. I'm just going to, first question would be to just dive a little deeper on the 8.9 million in SUPS-B for the out-of-court settlements. What ministries would these be related to?
Well, RCMP falls under public safety, largely under Minister Goodale, but also obviously a legal issue would also implicate justice as well.
But we're the employer.
And as the employer, Treasury Board. Yeah, so we,
are these,
as the employer.
Are, to your colleagues who are with you,
yes.
Are these, they're very variable costs year to year, depending on the number of lawsuits that are out there existing. Is the strategy to up to the ministries to determine whether they do out-of-court settlements or they go forward to court cases? Is there a consistent year-to-year amount that is allocated for these types of situations?
Yeah, correct me, but I know there are contingencies in that government maintains on an ongoing basis. And there is, we have, as a cabinet, the Prime Minister has established a cabinet committee, legal affairs committee, to help strengthen the ability to predict these. But there is, and every government maintains contingencies on an ongoing basis. Brian may have more granular detail.
Thank you, Minister. Specifically, sir, with respect to forecasting liabilities for out-of-court settlements, contingent liabilities, the process is such that when there is a claim against the Crown, we work with the Department of Justice to determine if the claim is founded and the probability of there being a payment due. And once we make that assessment that there's a probability of a liability due, even if we are not making the payment, the claim, the liability will be recorded in the public accounts. Public accounts were just tabled a couple of weeks ago, and in that way we reflect the total liabilities of the government. The issue here with the White case is that there was a settlement made based on a precedent established with the Canadian Forces. Best efforts were made to identify the number of participants, number of claimants, but we're dealing with members that go back as far as 1970. So in this case, the additional costs are due to unanticipated members coming forward that were not part of the original claim, or in the case where we made a decision and lost on appeal, and therefore payments are owing.
Okay, next question would be regarding the Windsor-Detroit Bridge, the Gordie Howe Bridge. There's 300, it was mentioned earlier in your comments, I believe, the number being 350.6 million in the SUPS-B to do some land acquisition. Just in general terms, is the project on time and is it on budget?
The project is proceeding. As you know, this has been for some time, has taken a long time. There's more than one government has worked on this. The importance of that Detroit crossing with Windsor is essential in terms of Canada's trade relationship with the United States. The project, I am told, is within budget, but it has experienced a lot of delays due to environmental assessments, government approvals in Michigan, and legal challenges from certain stakeholders. The Bridge Authority, we're moving forward on this, but there's a lot of, I forget how many pieces of land. I think it was several hundred parcels of land that needed to be acquired. My understanding is about 50% of that land has been acquired. My information is about 50% has been acquired, and the rest is on track. But you can imagine the complexity and the number of moving parts in terms of moving forward. The key point, I think you'd agree, is that we need to move forward, and we need to ensure that we improve the ability to move people and goods across that crossing. And but it is, you know, as I say, it has been for more than one government a challenging but an important project.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, Mr. McCollum. Madame Shanahan, 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much, Minister, for being here with us and the rest of the panel. So I'm interested in this relationship between the supplementary estimates that we're studying today and the budget process, and just how it helps in the quality of our review. For example, in the budget, we talked about a program for harmonizing the human resources programs across many departments. And an amount of $75 million was allocated to that. So it's very similar to the shared services sort of problematic, where we've got different HR programs across many departments, and it's difficult to have aggregate information around that. So that's interesting to me because it was presented in the budget, but it's now in the supplementary estimates that we're asking for 68, that the Treasury Board is asking for 68.1 million. And I just wanted to understand, you know, what would change in the reform? Like, how can I study that amount now? How can I understand how that amount is going to be used to put that project into place? And how will it change so we can avoid, you know, the problems that we're now seeing with Phoenix, which of course was a similar type program of trying to harmonize multiple platforms?
Thank you, Brendan. It is essential that we modernize our ability as a central agency of government as the employer, but also Treasury Board from a financial management perspective and from an employer perspective. We play an important role in this. We do not have right now, and we haven't had the right IT system to, on an ongoing basis, in real time, have the kind of information we need on human resources or financial information across department and agency. So what this will provide us with is, in real time, in every department and agency, to have up-to-date human resource and financial information for every department and agency. So it's something we have to do as part of running modern, efficient government. You're quite right. Anytime any government of any stripe undertakes any IT project, enterprise-wide, it is a big challenge. We are monitoring on an ongoing basis the work being done to move forward on the back office transformation. We are studying past IT transformation projects in order to learn what went well, what didn't go well, what are the lessons from that, and we are doing our utmost to get this one right. And I'll ask Yaprak to contribute to that as well.
So what would be different is that, first of all, we have a very strong project management office to make sure that the project is managed. The second thing is that the project has and will have more off-ramps. Like, if we think that there's a risk to it, then at least there will be choices for the government and essentially for Parliament to see where we go. The third thing is that we will only onboard departments when everybody is ready. So their systems won't be shut down. There will be almost parallel systems. You bring them on only when they are ready, so one at a time as departments get ready. We think that's the best way to approach this, because this big bang becomes issues of connection. I think that's what you were worried about, and we're extremely sensitive to that.
Excellent, because the one thing I would want to avoid is that we're coming back in supplementary estimates A, B, and C in future years asking for more money for a project that, you know, should have been.
Let me tell you, Brenda, we probably will be back in the future on this. No, I want to make this point now because I want to be transparent on this because there are two mistakes that we don't want to make. One is we want to maintain, as Yaprak said, a parallel system, the legacy system, until this one is running well. But two, we don't want to treat this as a cost-cutting exercise. When you're doing an IT project, there may be cost savings down the road, but it's a mistake, or it can be a mistake, if you try to exact those savings as part of the IT transformation. It actually costs more in the beginning of an IT transformation. It may save you money down the road, and that's the objective. But I've looked at a number of these over the years, and also my previous role as a Minister of Public Services and Procurement or Public Works at that time. And it is folly, in my view, to try to get savings during an IT transformation. You have to invest more in the beginning to get it right, including maintaining parallel legacy systems.
Minister, we're going to have to cut you off there. Thank you. Mr. McCauley, 5 minutes, please.
Welcome back. Just quick, we'll go back to the SUP-Bs, please. Just a couple of quick questions. We've got for CBC, $75 million saying funding to disseminate and support world-class Canadian content to provide Canadians with better access to programs. $75 million. Is that just a basic straight grant and they can run with it as a so wish, or is it actually being broken out to provide Canadians with better access? I'm not sure how we're giving Canadians better access if they don't have a TV or an internet. This money's not going to be used to buy them a TV, so how's it going to give them better access?
Part of this is a digital...
And I don't want to be sarcastic,
no,
either someone wrote this up wrong or...
No, the issue here is, and we made a significant commitment as a government to investing in CBC as part of Budget 2016. This is an installment as part of that,
right,
and to ensure the development of and dissemination of digital content. There has been there were cuts to CBC for an extended period of time. Part of what we're doing is reversing those cuts and investing in their digital infrastructure.
Yeah. I know, but please, if you could just answer the question. Sorry to be rude. Sorry. Provide Canadians with better access to programs. How is that money going to be used to provide Canadians with better access to the programs?
Actually, part of it is
access it through the web,
part
or
of
TV.
You've actually, in terms of digital content and the availability of more digital content for CBC, that's part of the priority, and they need to invest in a platform for content. And more innovative content, more, there is right now in terms of the digital platform.
Better access. Can I just assume this was written up wrong?
No, I think no, I don't think that would be a right
How is
assumption at all.
$75 million being used
it's
to
a question
provide them with better
a question
access?
of semantics. We're investing in new content, but it's also...
It doesn't say more content.
Please, gentlemen.
Okay. I'll ask just real brief, then move on. It doesn't say more content or new content. It's saying better access.
You have better access to better content, new content, and enhanced services, and also the digitization.
Let's move on.
No, but part of if I may, in terms of content, CBC has a lot of archives, really important archives. Digitizing those archives is important. It does cost money. We have this. And so, this is part of that funding will enable CBC to digitize.
I got a couple more steps I want to get to. Funding to support interim measures as part of a review of the federal environmental assessment process for the NEB, almost $700,000. Was that for the selection of the 5 new NEB members? Well, it seems like, November 8th, just from a CBC article, Liberals named 5-person panel to help reform the NEB. Is that what this money is for?
Well, first of all, it's absolutely essential that the NEB has the kind of support that garners the confidence of
what
Canadians. So we are making
what the
investment
money
in
is
terms of
for?
restoring that. Let me confirm.
Macaulay, which agency are you referring to?
The NEB.
NEB. And if you don't have
Yes.
the answer now,
Yeah.
No, I've got it, yeah.
We were just garnering that.
So is that it?
Yeah, we're just
NEB or
NEB.
NRCan?
NEB.
You can answer later.
Yeah, we'll get back
I'm
to
sure I've only got about 30 seconds left. Just the last one, it's 430,000 funding to support the implementation of an independent advisory board to select a new Supreme Court Justice. I know we selected a very qualified one from Newfoundland. I just have to ask, $430,000 to set up an advisory board to select? I realize it's very important, and we selected a phenomenal candidate from Newfoundland.
We look.
Where did that money go?
Good government, good governance takes certain investments, and the selection of a Supreme Court judge is very important. This was the first time we've had a more transparent and less opaque approach to doing this that involved the advisory group did I think an excellent job under the leadership of former progressive conservative Prime Minister Kim Campbell. Did an excellent job, and I commend Prime Minister Campbell, Ms. Campbell, and her group for having done an excellent job that resulted in Newfoundland and Labrador having its first judge on the Supreme Court, an exceptional candidate.
We are out of time, but perhaps. Sorry, Mr. McCauley, Mr. McCauley. And Mr. Minister, we're out of time. Could I just suggest this? Could you provide this committee with a detailed breakdown of the $400,000 and where it was spent?
All right. I will. And I also, in terms of the NEB amount, Kelly, I'll get you that. We'll get you that as well.
Thank you. Mr. Whalen, our final intervention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Mr. McCauley, for again highlighting what a great job the committee did and hiring what I hope will be one of the best Supreme Court justices that ever get to sit. And Mr. Bryson, I want to follow on a little farther on the CBC. It was an important campaign commitment that we'd made, and we're glad to see an extra $75 million subsidy go towards the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. Do we have visibility into how much this is going into hardware, network infrastructure, salaries, and other aspects to make this digital technology work?
Firstly, as you've said, Mr. Whalen, this is part of our platform commitment, our budget 2016, which reflected a platform commitment. I'm told that much of this is for the digitization efforts, including a digitization of what is a massive archive within CBC, but that's only part of it, and we can provide you with, as a member of this committee, more detail on that. So we will get back to this committee with more granular detail in terms of Department of Heritage, or CBC in this case, the utilization of those funds.
And in a way, I see this as being, one of the reasons why maybe project-based estimates and might be beneficial in appropriations, because then we have more visibility. This is $75 million. Maybe the overall project for digitization is much larger. Parliamentarians should have insight into what the project scope is, how much is being subsidized, and how much is being provided through funds the CBC generates from its advertising. Is it possible for your department to provide us project-based information?
We can ask CBC to provide, you as a parliamentarian can ask CBC for that as well, but we can ask CBC as a Crown agency. Okay. And Heritage as well.
In terms of the Canadian
and my YAPRAC has mentioned as well, Heritage, the committee, Minister Joly would be better positioned to answer that specific question than Treasury Board. Not to say that there's not a lot of culture in Treasury Board.
Well, I had an opportunity to sit on the Heritage Committee, and it was wonderful to see some of the new technology CBC has for 360-degree viewing. It's a very interesting experience, especially with the murdered and missing Indigenous women study going on now, and they had some very interesting stories in a very interesting way. And so I think that the money is being well spent. In terms of the Canadian Museum for Human Rights, they're receiving appropriations, new appropriations of 11.9 million, and also I see in another part of there's a museums assistance program for another 1.5 million that's coming in for the same sort of thing. I was wondering if Treasury Board could explain each of these amounts and how they go to, and what purpose they're serving, what they're for, and why they're not in one place, why they're in two places.
I'll ask Brian to do that. I can say that the Museum of Human Rights in Winnipeg is a remarkable achievement for our country. And the leadership by the Asper Foundation, the support by the federal government, but it is tremendously important to recognize the diversity we have in Canada and the role we have both within Canada and globally to defend human rights. And I think of that Human Rights Museum in Winnipeg. I think of also the Immigration Museum in Halifax. These are important national museums that are outside of Ottawa. And as a Nova Scotian, I actually believe that we need to celebrate Canadian greatness across Canada. And in, of course, in Ottawa, but I think it's great when we can identify these opportunities to invest in and promote Canadian excellence and leadership in institutions like the Museum of Human Rights and the Immigration Museum. And Brian.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Whalen. Budget, very quickly. Budget 2016 announced $105.9 million over 5 years and $6.1 million ongoing as a horizontal initiative to support a number of museums, including the Museum of Human Rights. And that investment in Budget 16 is both for refurbishment of infrastructure, elevators, access ramps, this sort of thing, and also the payment of property taxes, property in lieu of taxes. Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I had a chance to go to that museum in May, and it truly is a moving experience, and it's a remarkable achievement.
Thank you, Mr. Whalen. Mr. Minister, would you have an additional 3 minutes? That would allow us to complete the full round with Mr. Weir having the last 3-minute intervention. Unfortunately, I have to leave. If you do as well, sir, I will adjourn now, but it's up to you.
I have to go because I have an announcement.
That's fine, as do I. I have a meeting with the liaison.
But I always enjoy our conversation. I thank you very much, Mr. Lukiski, and thank you very much to all the members of this committee.
Thank you.
I look forward to returning.
And we will have you back again, sir. We are adjourned.